Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and it's time to go back in time to a nostalgic favorite of mine, a movie which I have seen. I have lost count. I think by the time I was, like 24 or something, I must have seen this movie at least 20 times. I don't know, and I've seen that movie. I've seen the movie since then. I have no clue. I have seen it. I'm going to give a random number and think that this is probably close to as how many times I've watched the movie, and I'm going to say 35 times. I don't know. Because I've watched this movie several times on VHS, a few times on cable, streaming services, and on DVD. So together it's 35 minimum. And I love this movie. I like watching this movie at least once every 3 years or so. And it is kind of like high time that I did a rewatching of it. So this time I'm also doing the review. So talking about Planet of the Apes, sci-fi classic from 1968. This movie is directed by, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. I have no clue if I've seen anything else of him. But it's from 1968 and it's based on the 1963 French novel La Planète des Signes, if I don't know French, by Pierre Boulle. And excuse me, the movie was written by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling, and there are quite differences from the book. Movie stars, of course, the great Charlton Heston. Now I know there's been he's got some flack. I know he passed away, but he's had some flack in recent years before he died because of his stance on a few things. And yeah, that aside, he is a classic actor and amazing star of yesteryears. You also have the great Roddy McDowell, who's a big favorite of mine, especially for these films and a couple of other movies as well, but I do love Roddy McDowell. Kim Hunter, Maurice Evans, James Whitmore, James Daly, and the lovely Linda Harrison, who is amazingly beautiful, by the way. And this was her first film as well. So basically, this is a very famous film. Excuse me. But what the movie basically addresses is the path that mankind is going on, the destruction and the carelessness, and that someday we might end up on the wrong side of the food chain, you want to call it, but we might end up on the wrong side, and we might be the ones who are treated as savage animals and experimented on, like we have experimented on certain animals, in this case monkeys. So as the movie starts, you see this crew led by Charlton Heston's character Taylor, and they are on a mission to find a it's supposed to be to an unknown planet, and I think they're actually looking for possibility of creating a new home, and resources on Earth being a problem. There are 3 other crew members in the ship, 2 men and 1 woman, and well, they are in deep hibernation after going through near light speed. And what happens is that they crash onto a planet which at the time they don't know which planet it is, and it's supposed to be somewhere in Orion's Bellatrix system, which is 300 light years from our Earth. And 2006 years have passed after they have left, and they were supposed to have left in 1972, even though the movie is shot and released in 1968. So due to the time dilation effects, which a famous scientist had actually thought about, I forgot the name of the scientist, but he's very famous, suddenly just skips my mind. They have barely aged a year. However, Stewart, who was the female astronaut, her pod was broken. There's a crack, and therefore she died a natural death while she was in hibernation. She aged and she died. The other 3 men just barely grew a year. Yeah, aged a year. So they've landed on water. The ship is sinking. They manage to escape, and then they try to find some sort of civilization or some kind of habitat where they can make a home for themselves. As they go along, they find they find a kind of like an oasis in the desert, a little bit of life, and they see primitive mankind basically wearing loincloths and a little fur, just covering the basic bits, as you can imagine. And they're mute; they don't speak. So they're thinking of what they can do. They can basically, with their knowledge, they will be able to basically rule over the entire village. So they'll be running the, if not the entire planet, then at least that settlement. When the camp is attacked by gorillas on, I think gorillas, yeah, on horseback. So basically, gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans are like, they're almost like humanoid form. They stand on two legs, and they talk, they ride horses, they are treating the human folk as slaves, as animals, and even pets at occasions, and experimenting on them scientifically as well. Unfortunately, Taylor is shot on the neck and he can't speak. There are two scientists, one who's played by Kim Hunter, named Dr. Zira, and her fiance Roddy McDowell, who plays Dr. Cornelius, and she takes a liking to Taylor, and she's convinced that he's more intelligent than the average savage human. Of course, they don't know that he is, he is an astronaut, and well, he manages to speak. That particular scene is very, very, iconic, in which he is chased and they capture him, and he says, "Get your stinking paws on me, damn dirty apes." So that's a beautiful scene. So he tries to convince the apes that he is from another planet, a distant planet in another solar system, and he is not sure how come this upside down world is there, where mankind is treated as animals and experimented on, and they're mute, and then the simians, like the orangutans, who are the politicians, the gorillas, who are the military folk, and the scientists are the chimpanzees. So he's not really sure exactly how it happened, but they don't listen. Nobody is willing to listen to him. Zira and Cornelius are sure that there's something different. They think that he's an offshoot of the human beings, with possibly being a different a location where mankind is a lot more smarter. However, they're not completely convinced, but because he is going to be killed and experimented upon, I think initially they're planning to emasculate him and then experiment on him later to do research on his brain. They let him loose. However, the lead politician and scientist, Dr. Zayas, plays by Maurice Evans, who plays a wonderful villain, by the way, and completely distasteful person. He knows what's up. He actually is aware of exactly what's going on, although he doesn't let the. So Taylor does suspect. So they manage to escape. However, Dr. Zayas and the military go behind him. They are aided by Dr. Zira's nephew. I cannot remember his name. Is it Lucius? I think so. Anyway, by her nephew, and then they find this cave where Dr. Cornelius had actually done some research and try to find out that there is possibility of an ancestor of theirs who is pretty much more advanced, humans. And there they find a talking doll, glasses, and something that's like a valve onto the heart as well. So Taylor is able to Taylor is convinced that mankind was there first, and he was more advanced, he was superior, but there's something that wiped him out, but nobody else really believes him. However, he threatens Dr. Zayas, and because he needs to escape from there, so he takes this female character, I forgot to mention that, played by he calls Nova. She is one of the mute prehistoric kind of females from the club who he is kind of like supposed to be his mate. They like she's kind of fallen for him, he's kind of fallen for her. So he gets supplies and he leaves to an area that they call the forbidden zone, where the simians are not supposed to go, and it's supposed to be formerly a paradise which, according to Dr. Zayas, mankind ruined, and that is why they call it the forbidden zone. So nobody is allowed to go there. So he decides to leave, take his chances and go there and try to see if he can find some other tribe of advanced humans or something that he can live along with Noah and leave the rest of them. So as he leaves, Dr. Zayas says, I don't want anybody to follow him. Let him go there. He's going to find his destiny. And he knows exactly what's happening. And that's because when Taylor goes along and he goes along the coastline, which is basically an ocean, he finds that scene. That scene is one of the most iconic in all of film, where basically he sees a partly covered, it's mostly covered Statue of Liberty. He's actually been home all this time. So they went into the future, 2000 plus years, but they crash landed on Earth, which is now completely changed after a nuclear holocaust kind of thing. And then in the recovery, mankind kind of devolved after that, and the simians took over, and that is why it's called Planet of the Apes. So damn you all to hell, you maniacs. That's exactly why this movie is absolutely brilliant. It is different from the book, but the original story, but I think it's even more dramatic than the book novel is. I haven't read the novel, although I know how the novel ends. It's kind of similar, but not exactly. And this is why Planet of the Apes is so amazing. So that's it, guys. This is basically the first movie, Planet of the Apes. If you've never watched it before, you are missing so much. If you've seen this for the first time, spoiler, sorry, but it's from 1968. And I don't know what it is about the late 1960s, but sci-fi was amazing. You had Planet of the Apes in 1968. You had 2001: Space Odyssey, also from 1968, and you had Star Trek from 1966 till 1969. So that was an amazing time for science fiction in particular. So these are franchises that have, I can't call 2001: Space Odyssey them a franchisee, but the movie is amazing still. Star Trek is amazing still. It has had all these series that came after that, and of course Planet of the Apes have all these movies. And sorry, Star Trek had movies as well as television shows, and Planet of the Apes have had all these movies, including one short-lived television show as well, the one that I've not watched. So this is my review for the 1968 movie Planet of the Apes. It is on top in terms of movies, in terms of science fiction classics. Excuse me. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you, and have a good night.